The federal government issued a clarification today on entry requirements for truckers. Truckers will have to be fully vaccinated to enter Canada. This clarification comes after information shared with media about exemptions caused confusion. The information was, quote, provided in error. The Minister of Transportation, Omar Alghabra, is here now. Minister, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, David. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you today.
How did this happen? Why has there been so much confusion about this over the last 24 hours on such a pretty core issue?
Yeah, David, first, let me just say that we've been consistent since the day we announced this policy on November 19th. And prior to that, we've been consistent with other mandates that we've implemented in our aviation sector, within our rail sector. And on November 19th, we announced that we are lifting several exemptions that have been provided over the last few months or the last year and a bit, including for truckers who are crossing the borders, requiring them to be fully vaccinated. So and since November 19th, we've been consistent in all of our meetings with stakeholders, in all of our interviews to the public. I do regret yesterday a spokesperson misspoke, and that created some reports that had inaccurate information in it. And that's why I'm here today sharing this information with you, reaffirming what we've been consistently saying for a long time. And my colleagues and I issued a statement as well to reaffirm that position.
Okay, but how did the spokesperson misspeak? I mean, you say you were consistent from November 19th right up until yesterday, but did they just not understand it? Was there a document with bad information on it? I mean, what's the genesis of this? Because it caused some shockwaves with sensitive supply chain partners.
Look, we're looking into exactly what happened. My rough understanding of what had happened is that there was incomplete information before the spokesperson, and then they used that incomplete information, and unfortunately it created this inaccurate report. So we're certainly looking to the bottom of this, and we're going to make sure that any errors in the process that are fixed, but our position remains consistent from the day we announced our policy.
Okay, so you're going ahead with this. It's going to come into force, the full vaccine mandate to be able to cross the border by this weekend. But, you know, given the concerns from the trucking industry and other business groups that have raised about how this could affect supply chains, have you given any thought to maybe delaying this?
David, every step of the way, we take a lot of time and spend a lot of time thinking about our policies, and we want to do the right thing. And we've consistently put the health and safety of Canadians as our priority. And another priority is protecting the supply chain. This policy measure is intended to protect the supply chains and those who work in the supply chain. So yes, we have been speaking with stakeholders, we've been speaking with truckers and operators, and all of them are aware and understand the necessity for vaccine mandate. So look, everybody is working towards that. We've done it in the airline sector. We've done it in the rail sector. And this is just another step in furthering the protections and health and safety of Canadians, and also furthering protection for our supply chain.
Right. I understand furthering the protection for the people who work in the supply chains and the public health motivation behind this. But what about the supply chains themselves, right? I mean, we have an inflation challenge happening in this country. It hit 7% in the United States. And supply chain snarls and an absence of truck drivers, they're a real big part of that. And we're seeing reports from associations in the U.S. that as many as half of the truck drivers who come here on a monthly basis won't be able to come here. That's not going to make the supply chains work well. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, David, you and I share this, and our government share this common objective, which is protecting the supply chain. And the biggest threat to supply chain is COVID. And the vast majority, and all of my conversations and my colleagues' conversations with stakeholders, with members of the industry, admit to us that the vast majority of truck drivers are fully vaccinated. And there are, yes, still a rough estimate. No one has an exact figure what the number of truck drivers who are not fully vaccinated. But this is intended to encourage others to be vaccinated, because vaccines is our best way out of this pandemic. So if we are serious, and I know you are, and I am, and our government is, about protecting our supply chains, let's protect our supply chains from COVID by requiring vaccines. That's the best way to ensure the reliability of food supply, reliability of trade corridors, is to make sure that people are protected from COVID.
You know, the Conservatives have issued a statement through Melissa Lantsman, who's your critic, and she says today's reversal by the Trudeau government will only make Canada's cost of living crisis worse by driving the price of basic essentials like groceries up. What do you say to her and people who are worried about the rising cost of living caused by supply chain snarls?
First of all, let me just disagree with her, and I'm sure you won't be surprised. This is not a reversal. This is an affirmation of our consistent position. Second, it is actually the Conservative Party who's been speaking out of both sides of their mouth. On the one hand, they acknowledge and admit that vaccines are our best way out of this pandemic, yet they are undermining our message to ensure that everybody is vaccinated. On the one hand, they want tough border measures. On the other hand, they want less border measures. So I am really confused as what the Conservative wants, except just to create political noise. Having said that, we take our advice from experts, from public health experts, and everybody knows that vaccines are our best way out of this. Everybody knows that vaccines is the best way to protect the supply chains, and we are proceeding with what we believe is the best thing for Canadians and Canada's economy.
So this is coming into force here on Saturday. A similar policy is going to come into effect in the United States on the 22nd. You've worked closely with the White House on border issues throughout this entire pandemic. Why not coordinate things here? This is something the industry has said they'd like to see, a consistent implementation time.
Yeah, this is not the first time that we don't have symmetry with the United States. And when we announced our policy in November, the U.S. had not by that time announced their policy. So it worked out that these two policies are coming into force very closely together. So there's just a week difference, which is great. I think there's going to be symmetry within a week. So we do support the United States effort in ensuring that border crossers are fully vaccinated.
Okay, one last question before I let you go. If the knock-on effect of this is that there is a disruption in supply chains that starts to be felt on the grocery store shelves and in the wallets of Canadians across the country, is there flexibility on this policy to respond to it if it becomes too much?
David, what we're seeing everywhere in all sectors of our economy is a rising absenteeism. And the best way to tackle this illness, this infection, is through vaccination. So I would argue that the threat to our supply chain is COVID, and that if we don't tackle COVID, if we don't increase the level of vaccination, the risks to our supply chains are higher. Having said that, we've constantly worked with stakeholders, with industry players on providing certain accommodation if they make sense. However, providing a blanket accommodation for people who are unwilling to get vaccinated without any reason undermines the risk, the safety for our supply chains and for Canadians. So we've made accommodations for people who have medical reasons not to get vaccinated. We've made accommodation for certain critical sectors, the economy. But generally speaking, we believe that vaccination is the best way to protect Canadians and also to protect our supply chains.
Okay, Minister Alghabra, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, David.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.